Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What are some very creepy facts? Scar tissue doesn't just form and then it's done, it's a constant active process involving something to do with collagen. If you developed scurvy, the lack of vitamin C will mean that your collagen cannot synthesize properly and all your old scars will just open. Made worse, not every scar is on the outside of your body. Fuck, this is the real scary fact. My mother was hospitalized due to a mystery abdominal pain a few years ago. Turns out it was something to do with the scar tissue from her C-section from my birth. I'm in my 40s. Mom was fine after some minor treatment, but I told her that if she died, I was putting it in her obituary that the cause of death was complications from childbirth. Quote, absolute deadass gallows humor, I love it. If you sit in complete darkness and silence long enough, your brain can start creating sounds, shadows, or even the feeling that someone is watching you. It's called sensory deprivation hallucination, very similar to Charles Bonnet syndrome. To put as basic as possible, where after macular degeneration, the black spot in your vision, your brain starts to put images in that black spot. Usually faces of loved ones, but can be anything. It's literally your brain trying to fill in the gap, which it actually already does for everyone, to an extent. Where the optic nerve passes through the back of the eye, there's a blind spot. Everyone has one in each eye, but we never really notice it because our brain fills it in with what it thinks should be there. Kinda fascinating. Your intestines know what shape they're supposed to be in and will physically move to recreate that shape if they're disrupted. If you for whatever reason get your guts outside of your body, they will move on their own to form the same shape that they did while inside your body. That's how they managed to all fit inside there. Literally one of my favorite facts ever, I just think it's so cool. Creepy, but cool. That's why when surgery is done the surgeon can just kinda shove all that back in there and it'll fix itself. I've seen it like 100 times in veterinary medicine. My mom had surgery and the doctor told her he threw her guts back in and stitched her up. He wasn't kidding. If you have a C-section, you can feel your intestines moving back into place for a few hours afterward. I had a vaginal birth. Once you stand up from the delivery table, your guts fall back into place. Super weird. There's a rare psychiatric disorder called Capgras delusion, where you think your family and friends have been replaced by imposters. There's the part of your brain that recognizes faces, and the part that stores memories and feelings associated with a person. In a normally functioning brain, when you see a person you recognize, your brain looks up the feelings associated with that person. In Capgras, that process fails, so when you see someone you know and love, you get this strong sense that it just doesn't feel like that person. So your brain reconciles that disconnect by concluding that the person must be an imposter or duplicate. You can imagine the paranoia it would lead to if suddenly every important person in your life felt off, and you thought everyone was an alien clone or something. There is a Reddit thread where a husband slowly realizes his wife has this. Good read but scary. Go post us a link. I remember reading a story about this one where a college kid went on vacation and got into an accident. While he was in the hospital, he called his parents and had regular conversation with them. When they got there to pick him up, he started freaking out because he didn't visually recognize them as his parents. IRC, at one point the doctor or nurse had the parents stand outside the door and talk to him. Again, everything great, until they were in his sight. That is what makes it so horrible. The voice is familiar, the recollections are still there, the reasoning is there, but the emotion is no more when they are standing in front of you. It is as though that emotional badge to your brain has melted away and love becomes suspicions without it. None of these ghosts, none of these aliens, just a little neural dislocation, a fracture of reality. Frankly speaking, that is even more terrifying than a horror film. Your brain can create false memories that feel completely real. I remember the first time you said that. Some or many of your childhood memories may be stories you heard about and imagined playing out while being told. Sometimes when I see a photo with me in it from when I was too young to remember, I later think that I remember the incident it was taken, when in reality I was just making up a memory that revolved around that one picture. The Colombian serial killer Pedro Alonso Lopez, who is known as the Monster of the Andes, raped and murdered over 300 girls from Ecuador, Peru and Colombia. However, after he was caught and imprisoned for 18 years, he was put in a psychiatric hospital. There he was reviewed, declared to be sane and was set free, in spite of his blatant avowal that he fully intends to kill again. Since he was released in 1998, nobody knows where he is or what he's doing. He is supposed to be 71 years old at present. He is known for being the most prolific killer ever. That's so insane. I hadn't heard of him, so looked him up. His claim about how many kids he killed was questioned by police, because it was so absurdly high, but to prove it he took them to site after site where he had buried bodies, including his own damn mass grave of girls. So they eventually accepted his claimed numbers as true. What absolute scum. It's absolutely bonkers that he was declared sane and released. He almost certainly was lynched by victims' families immediately after being released. One would hope so. Almost certainly not. He was released in 1998. He is documented as having visited his mother much later that year, and he was confirmed as having visited a government office in September 1999. In 2002, a warrant was issued for his arrest in a murder case bearing strong similarities to his modus operandi, but it was deactivated in 2005 when an abandoned corpse was identified by a forensic team as being him. There is some controversy about that, however, and he was identified as a suspect in another murder in 2012, again due to similarities to his former murders. That which is not alive cannot be killed. Prions scare me, everybody glossing over this guy being correct. Prions are terrifying. I didn't understand how scary mad cow was at the time until I became an adult and realized there's no cure, highly transmissible via ingestion, and 100% painfully fatal. I vaguely knew about CJD until I was in surgical assisting school and they spoke about destroying any surgical supplies and equipment that could be contaminated, including the metal surgical instruments that get sterilized daily. They have to be quarantined and destroyed. Prions are super scary stuff. I knew a man who died from this just 2 months ago. Absolutely horrifying. Looking back at notes he took at work, you could see his handwriting steadily declining. It was an awful last few months of his life. When we had the first countrywide outbreak here, my brother, who was dating a beef farmer, came home one day white as a sheet. He said just watched a cow in front of him literally break dance in front of him, then drop down and die. He was freaked out that something that big could move like that and then die in front of him. I doubt it was head spins, but I guess you try to describe something you have never seen before. There's a video of a CWD deer doing a similar maneuver and then smashing its head against a boulder. It is unpleasant to see. I'm sure a cow would be just as terrible, especially in person. The slower you move through space, the faster you move through time. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. Astronauts age slower while in orbit. Photons don't age at all. The thing that always gets me is, we know speed affects the passage of time, but we never account for the fact that, if I may quote the masters, we're standing on a planet that's evolving, revolving at 900 miles an hour. It's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned, a sun, that is the source of all our power. The sun, and you and me, and all the stars that we can see, are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day. In the outer spiral arm, at 40,000 miles an hour, of the galaxy we call the Milky Way. All of which means that if there's such a thing as neutral passage of time, we certainly aren't experiencing it. Edit 1, thank you for the award. Edit 2, hose mad. There is no central point of reference. Speed is relative to what's around you. Everyone experiences time at exactly the same rate. Locally, it's just different when you compare. Chainsaws were invented for childbirth. Not every birth, just the hard ones. It is important to note that this was an improvement over the old method of breaking the pelvic bone when the birth canal was too tight, as it would heal better and was more controllable. Yeah, sometimes people act like they were invented as torture devices, but medicine just used to be that barbaric. They didn't have anything better. I watched a video on Louis XIV the other day and it mentioned his dental issues. Last week my dog had a dental appointment for the same issue. You know, with x-rays, anesthesia, antibiotics. Pretty comical that a random dog has better medical care than the Sun King, but that's progress. Another creepy fact about breaking the pelvic bone was that in Ireland, after C-sections became a commonplace procedure, doctors for many years continued to break Catholic women's pelvises, often leaving them with a lifetime of pain and disability, because the Catholic Church viewed C-sections as ungodly and it was more proper for Catholic women to give birth vaginally, as that increased their chances of having future babies. They of course didn't give women the choice and didn't explain any of the risks. Meanwhile, Tay didn't care about women of other religions, so they were fine to have a C-section. Here's what I learned today. Also, statistically, someone out there remembers you for something you don't even remember doing. You might be the villain in someone's story and not even know it. Or hero. Just your existence and something you do without thinking could have made someone's day or changed the way they thought about people. Like, you picking up a little piece of trash next to the trash can and putting it in the can. You may just do it cause it's habit. That might give someone else hope. Closing parenthesis. 9 years ago now, I was taking the train back to my hometown. I had to change at a station and I was struggling with my luggage and my child, 18 months. A woman in uniform helped me to my train and I kid you not, I thought about her almost every day for several months. She specifically said, I need to get to my own train, but I can't let you struggle like this. Catching a train back to my new town several months later, I noticed she was the train driver on the train I was on. I didn't want to go and interrupt her, so I sent a message through social media to her employer, told them she probably wouldn't remember me but she helped me at a time I was losing my mind and could they please pass along my thanks. Even now I still think about that woman at least once a month, especially as she wasn't just waiting for a train but driving one. I always try to be someone's hero now, from offering to take photos if I see a single parent out at an attraction with their kids down to driving a neighbor to an emergency appointment if they ever need it. The fact that unreleased Epstein files are 1,000 times worse than the ones that got released. I think the creepier fact is authorities have had that information for years and only one person is in jail for it. And she's being treated like a princess. 2 of 3 arrested died by suicide in prison. That's some stats. It's more horrifying to realize there will be absolutely no consequences for these monsters. Bondi literally said if they release them all, unconcord, the system would collapse. As if that's a bad thing, but one can only imagine.